Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls PvP and another weapon showcase. This time I am covering the two Greatswords of Artorias, starting off with the non-cursed version, the divine version for lack of a better term. Now, this version of the sword has a strength requirement of 24, dexterity of 18, 20 for faith, and 20 for intelligence. Excuse me. Now, this version of the sword also has the highest divine modifier in the game at 140. And what the divine modifier does exactly, it increases the damage done against certain enemies in the game. It works against Dark Wraiths, the NPCs, not the invader, not other players. So it has no effect on PvP, this is purely PvE. It has the highest divine modifier, so it affects that better than others. It also, like all weapons with a divine modifier, it keeps the skeleton enemies in the catacombs, the ones that reassemble themselves, it keeps them from reassembling while their necromancers are still alive. So that's very, very convenient. So enough of that PvE stuff. That's really probably the only time I'm ever going to mention that in a video. Moving forward, from a PvP standpoint, this weapon is not as good as the cursed version. The reason I'm saying that is because of the split damage. This weapon has a higher AR than the cursed version of the sword. The AR I have with this weapon is, I believe, 558, I want to say. With the cursed, it's around 530 something. I don't remember exactly what the point is. There's not that much of a difference between the AR, but this version of the sword does split damage and the cursed does not. So from a PvP standpoint, you got two weapons, they've got the same moveset, same weight, same everything, except for stat requirements. The cursed version of the sword actually has lower stat requirements than this version, but I'll get more into that a little bit later on when I start showing the video on that. Other things about this version of the sword, I did not mention the stat bonuses. It has a C for dexterity and a C for strength, and a B for intelligence and for faith. So this weapon will get most of its damage out of the magical part of its split damage. Well, that's not necessarily true, but that's where most of the scaling is leaning. So really, you need to have your stats very widely spread to have this be a viable weapon and have it be a viable thing to use in your build. Now, right there, I really don't like this weapon's R2 attacks. This weapon in general is not very good for doing combos, which is one of the things that makes the Greatswords more viable in my opinion. They are really, really good at comboing. These swords, they don't have that ability. Just because their R2 attacks are strong, but they're really slow. So that kind of is disappointing, really. I mean, it's a really great, satisfying feeling when you actually land the R2 attacks, but overall, it's just not worth trying to do sometimes. I mean, it takes so much time for it to wind up and for it to swing. It's so slow. It makes it really almost not worth using. But anyway, I pretty much have said everything I wanted to say about the non-cursed divine version of the sword. And I believe now it's time to start talking about the cursed version. Now, the cursed version has a strength requirement of 24, a dexterity of 18, and the faith and intelligence levels required are also 18. So you save 4 levels by basing your build off of this version of the sword. In addition to that, the scalings are C, all the way across. So, that being said, it really doesn't matter much if you have higher faith or intelligence, because they're not going to be affecting its magic damage, because it doesn't have any magic damage. This weapon is purely physical damage, which is why I believe that this is the better version of the sword for PvP. Not necessarily so for PvE, but again, this is a video about PvP, so moving on. I might as well mention the unique things about the sword as far as PvE is concerned. The cursed version of the sword can damage ghosts even if you're not cursed, and if you're two-handing it, you can block their attacks with it. So that is pretty convenient if you do not have any transient curses, or if you're not cursed and you want to go down and deal with ghosts. I personally do not like the ghosts. I have unpleasant memories of trying to force my way through that area when I was just starting the game. I just don't like the ghosts. Just don't know why, I just can't get over that. I hate the ghosts, but that's not important. Moving on. Other things about this weapon, in particular, it is a very, very good weapon in comparison to the Divine version, just because of the damage output. It's so much different. It just seems to me like there's no reason for a person using it in PvP to even bother with the Divine version. But I do know a lot of people will, because they don't understand the difference between split damage and non-split damage. So to quickly explain that for anyone who is not familiar, split damage is when your AR, which is the damage it says it will do, is split between magical and physical, or physical and elemental damage. Now, even though that damage will be higher in most cases than a weapon that does purely physical damage, chances are it will do less damage than a weapon that does purely physical damage. And the reason for that is because it has two different sets of defenses that it needs to go through. So really what that means is you're going to hit, well, less. That's really the only way to say it. There's no way to really work around that and make it all nice and pretty sounding. You're just going to hit less because that's just the way it is. Now, as you could see in this fight, I was really trying to hit him with those R2 attacks. I was really trying, and I wanted to bad, but it just kept getting me into trouble. And that's what I was saying earlier. This weapon's R2 attacks are very hard to hit with. And while it is satisfying because they're so hard to hit with, it's just annoying to even try, because you can get yourself into so much trouble. And right there, I actually don't know exactly how that backstab happened. It just sort of did. I don't know, it was one of those little freak backstabs that just sometimes happens in this game, but oh well. Now right there, everything I've heard about this weapon and seen about this weapon says that its R2 attacks have a guaranteed knockdown. I don't know why it did not knock him down, but I guess that proves it wrong. So anyway, this is the last fight. I hope you guys found this video helpful in one way or another. Hope you enjoyed it. So again, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time.